Hey dudes, how's it going? Welcome back to another video. In today's video we are going to be talking about broken families. Yesterday I happened to finally jump on the train and watch Encanto, and then I watched it straight afterwards again to really watch and make notes, because there are just so many things in that film that we can take away about broken families. So today I am going to be going through every character, every main character, side character, and critiquing them and giving points that all of them could do to improve the functionality of that family. So let's start by talking about Maribel. Now, she is the main character, but that certainly doesn't mean that she is without fault. And for her, the way that she speaks to both her sisters, Luisa and Isabel, she kind of has this sarcastic tone with them when she's trying to get through to their feelings about things. So first with Luisa, when she's like, Luisa, there's something wrong with you, your eyes twitching, do you know about the magic? Do you know tell me what you're thinking? And actually Luisa's feelings really have nothing to do with that. But Maribel is just so blinded by her own issues and her own agenda that she's not really seeing Luisa for what she is and what her feelings are. And as Luisa starts to break down and burst into song and explain what's going on, it might just be the comedy of the film, but Maribel's facial expressions are pretty sarcastic, and it takes her a little while to really listen to Luisa and get a more appropriate tone and facial expression throughout the song.
I'm as tough as the crust of the earth is.
Okay.
Secondly, with Isabella, Maribel just has this idea that Isabella's life is so perfect, and even when Isabella starts to break that down with a bit more passion and directness, still Maribel is kind of arguing back and not really there to listen to that straight away.
Isa, I feel like you're upset. And you know what cures being upset? A warm embrace.
So for her to help her family be a bit more functional as a unit, she could definitely try to approach other family members' feelings with a bit more seriousness, a bit more open-mindedness, and just let them speak how they're feeling and just be open to that. Secondly, Abuela, she is again one of the main characters, and for her I just think things would be so much easier for the family if she just confronted the issues in hand straight on and stopped trying to bury them. Because as we see from the film, she knows that there are issues going on, but she doesn't share that with other family members and invite them to help. She's kind of carrying it on her own shoulders, and she's lost with it.
Cracks in our casita. If our family knew how vulnerable we truly are.
And also what would really help move the family forward is she was just more open about her past trauma and how that's affected her and why that might be motivating her to try and paint this picture that the family's great because she's in denial. As much as she is so much older than the characters, so maybe it's more of a status thing where she doesn't completely feels appropriate to teach the younger characters about her past and what that means for her, I think it would help the family have so much more understanding of her and get through things further if she shared. And also that then gives the younger characters a really good example and model of how they should be dealing with their own feelings and sharing those too, which is a big issue for most of the characters in this film. Isabella. Now Isabella really needs to not sacrifice her own identity for the sake of her family. As much as she might think what she's doing is a really good idea, she's losing herself, and that's never good for anyone. When Isabella is kind of taking on this perfect persona, she's not really happy, and the way that she treats other characters isn't ideal either.
Oh, it's nothing.
But when she breaks away from that, has her freedom, living out her true identity, she's so much more happy, and you can really tell the effect that has on other family members too. I think there's great symbolism for Isabella when everything is going crazy, the house is breaking, and one of her vines shoots up and hits Mariano in the face as he's proposing. I just think there's so much great metaphor that finally, in the chaos of it all, that is when she's just breaking down herself and finding her own freedom to be able to speak out through metaphor about what she wants and what she doesn't. But having said that, to be a really great functional family unit, it might have been better if she had been able to speak out her mind before that. Bruno was almost a tricky one. I took a little while thinking about this, but for me what I think is that Bruno just really needs to know and be secure in his own value and identity, even if others don't. As much as he was rejected, and he dealt with that with a lot of humility and still fought to help the family eventually, he's still in conversation with Maribel, even though they've not met before. Is still saying, well, you're going to think that I'm weird.
If I see something that you don't like, you're going to be all, Bruno makes bad things happen. Oh, he's creepy and his vision killed my goldfish.
So he's kind of taken this idea from other people that he's not got much value, and he's imposing that on new people he's never even met before. And he's kind of giving them a negative judgment to have over him rather than letting them assess that themselves. And I think that really comes from a place within himself that he just doesn't understand his own value. And as much as that is hard to sometimes, it's very easy to deny your value, and other people around you, particularly people close to you, aren't validating that in you. He's just got to know that for himself and have integrity in that. Louisa really needs to say no when enough is enough. She, as much as what she's doing for the family is really great, and there's lots of good metaphors in what she's doing, being really strong physically is a good representation of being strong emotionally, and a lot of people relying on her. Sometimes that's too much and people could take advantage of her. I think it's really interesting the fact that towards the beginning, when we're first meeting her, she's carrying donkeys, because donkeys are typically meant to be carrying themselves. They're the ones who are meant to be doing the moving, but even she is having to carry them. It's not just any everyday objects that would have to be carried. She's carrying the thing that is meant to be carrying everything else. So it's a great representation that she is doing her absolute most, and that's really taken a toll on her, and she needs to know when to look within when things are getting too much, and just relax and just rest and relax and take a break. Now, Julietta and Augustine, the parents of Maribel, I'm almost surprised they weren't more involved in the family dynamic. They're kind of side characters, but as parents, you might expect them to be a little bit more involved. Now, Julietta, she actually is a wonderful character, and I wouldn't say she's contributing a lot to the dysfunction of the family, although she certainly could speak up more. Particularly the conversation she has with Maribel in the kitchen is very supportive, and she's very wise, and she's got very good ideas about what a functional family is, and I just wish that she would speak that out more with the rest of the family members. She's got a lot of wisdom, she's got a great attitude, she just needs to share it and teach with it.
I wish you could see yourself the way I do. You are perfect. Just like this. You're just as special as anyone else in this family. I healed your hand with my love for my daughter, with her wonderful brain, big heart, cool glasses.
Mama.
Ay, te amo, cosa linda.
Augustine, on the other hand, is just, he's got such an attitude of cover-up, which is never good.
We say nothing. Abuela wants tonight to be perfect. Just act normal. No one has to know.
And what it led me to thinking about covering things up is that it only adds interest to the problem. Although in his eyes, pretending the idea is not there might make it go away, but in reality what it does is it adds interest. So the same way with if you borrow money from the bank, they will add interest on, so eventually when you pay that back, you pay back the money you borrowed plus extra. It's the same with bearing a problem. It's like one day that problem will come out and reach the surface, whether that's voluntary or not, but it will add more onto it. There'll be more difficulty that comes with that, because there'll be a lack of trust for other people, a lack of sincerity on your end, and people will see you for not confronting the issues as you probably should have. Dolores, again, a little bit of a thinker. It would have been nice to see a little bit more of her to get to know her character more, but what we've seen from her and her lack of ability to keep secrets is a little bit tricky, isn't it? And when you learn about certain information in a family that is sensitive or reactive for people, we need to think really carefully about how it is appropriate to share that, who should it be shared with, whereas she just absolutely bursts at the dinner table and it just starts this whole chain of revealing information in a way that's not the most helpful or appropriate.
Avocado.
Especially with her ability to hear things and gather information, she really needs to learn quite quickly how to respond to that well. So perhaps if she could learn some self-control and think about the consequences of telling people in a certain way, that would do a lot for the family. Next is Peppa, and I really think for her, she just needs to learn not to reinforce problems that are already there.
Don't talk about Bruno.
We don't talk about Bruno. She really needs to learn not to reinforce existing problems, but to think on her own feet and make up her own mind about things. And she also needs to learn that sadness is okay. She's a really interesting one in terms of her emotions, because in a sense, she wears them on her sleeve. Everyone knows what she's thinking, because physically there's always this weather around her showing that. But actually when it's her choice, she quickly tries to like flutter grey clouds away and bring back the sun, and oh, it's okay, have peace, it's alright, calm down. So perhaps for her, maybe she's not quite learned the value in being open with her feelings all the time, particularly her sad feelings. As much as she obviously does show them physically, she doesn't necessarily choose to do that, but actually sometimes that's a really good thing. And also it's all right to be sad. Like maybe she needs to spend a bit more time being sad when it comes and just process that rather than desperately trying to be happy all the time. Felix, again, a very difficult one to pinpoint something on. But what I would say is, as he's someone who's outside the family, he's married into it, it would be great if he could have more of a supportive role as a friend on the family, someone with more of an outsider perspective, and use that to offer advice or comfort to people. Now with the film, it's only a short film, they can't capture absolutely everything. We don't really see any kind of friendships happening outside this family. The film is very focused on this family network in isolation, so we don't really know what their friendships are like with other people. But what would be really good for Felix is to maybe try to play that role. Maybe when more the adult characters start having conversations with them and be supportive and ask them how things going in the family, and maybe just show a bit more awareness. Now Camilo, he needs to be careful with his bluntness.
Not if we don't have a house. What? We don't have a house. I can't say we don't have a house.
He seems to respond to a lot of situations by just calling things out for how they are in quite a dry humour, sarcastic kind of way, which none of the characters here seem to respond negatively to. However, that kind of sense of humour, I think you've got to be careful. If you catch people when they're in the wrong mood, they might not appreciate that kind of humour. If the only thing you've got to say is to call something out in a very dry, direct way, sometimes it's better just to keep that in your head. But again, like I say, no one in this film seems to respond badly to that, so maybe he's judged that and he's got it right, that that sense of humour is okay at the time. But perhaps as he starts to grow up and become more of an adult, that's something that he really should be careful of and use wisely. And now Antonio, possibly the most emotionally functional person here, except maybe Julietta. But it's difficult to critique him because he is a child. So almost my critique of him is just that I wish he would share more with the family, the values that he knows. Because in a sense, because he is a child and his mind is wired so simply, the lessons you learn as a child about emotions are really good. Like, share, be kind. And he knows that, and he uses that quite a lot throughout the film with Maribel in particular.
I told them to warm up your seat. For the nerves.
And sometimes when you're a teenager or an adult, these emotions can become very complicated, and sometimes you just need to go back to thinking like a child and thinking very simply. So I wish that he would have more of a voice with the other characters to try and draw that out of them. So it's really not a critique here, it's really more just to say that yes, this is really good, his values are great, and he could just share that more with people, and that would just be... So there are my suggestions for the characters and how they could all work, all do their own bit to be a bit more functional individually to contribute towards the family or directly into the family. Now, some general things about broken families. Like I touched on before, again, this film is just an hour and 45 minutes long, and they go through the process of things not really working but kind of holding together to completely breaking down to being rebuilt in a very short amount of time, in a feature-length film time. And actually in the film it's only what, a day or so, isn't it? And also in this film they look to the house to tell them that there's a problem. No one's really talking about the fact there's a problem until these cracks start showing. Even before the cracks start showing, Maribel is kind of contributing to the family problem a bit. As much as she certainly is a victim in a sense that, yeah, people are treating her differently because of her lack of gifting. However, when they're taking that family photo, there's a balance between no one notices she's not in the photo, but also she doesn't step forward to be part of the photo either. She equally just sort of steps back and just lets them exclude her. In part, she does exclude herself. So like I say, the characters look to the house and the magic, the prophetic words to tell them that there is a deep-rooted problem. However, with us, we don't have that. We have got to be reflecting, checking in with ourselves, with the people in our family, or maybe looking to other people, friends outside of the family, aunties, uncles outside, even therapists, to help us see how our family is functioning. Now, as much as I've said Maribel doesn't have a gift, that's really for the sake of illustrating the point about the photo. In reality, this film, gifts only matter so much. It really is trying to show us that character is the important thing, because it's Maribel who saves the day. It's the giftless that actually helps towards fixing things. It's not the magical skill she has, it's the magic in her heart. To further reinforce that with Maribel, look at the townspeople. They come with no gifts and they are just so full of love and self-sacrifice, and they offer their time and their energy to help rebuild this other family, even when it's completely not their problem. And I think that is even possibly more meaningful or equal to or equally as meaningful as Maribel with no gift. Yeah, as much as the gifts the other guys have are great, how much do they actually contribute to being a well-functioning family? Being able to talk to animals or hear other people, or I guess heal with food, yeah, that's a pretty good one. But they're not all obviously helpful towards the unit, are they? Some of them are just like fun, flowers, great, which is, you know, fine. But the thing that's actually helping towards the family get back together is love, which you don't need any kind of magic for. So I hope you liked this video, found it interesting. I'd love to know what your opinions on the characters are and the way that they function together. I'm sure that we could all watch the film and pick out something different, so that'd be really interesting to know what you guys saw. So do feel very welcome to drop us a comment before you go, and I'll see you in another video very soon. Bye. There's cat hair on my microphone. I hope that hasn't been annoying this whole time.